afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another new episode of RVN's still newer-ish television shows, What the Why with Barbara Ann. If you haven't seen us before, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Maybe you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck. Maybe you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, whether it's in your life, your business, your career, whatever the case. One of the main things that all of our guests have in common with you is they felt similarly at some point in time, and they figured out how to change. And today's guest is no exception. Our guest today is Julia Gandy. She's CEO of Embodying Wellness, LLC. She's a resiliency coach, a trainer, a speaker, and an author who focuses much of her time on helping healthcare workers and first responders build their resiliency to help reduce burnout and decrease emotional stress through one-on-one coaching and teleseminars, though she works with additional people outside of that scope. That just happens to be where her purpose is at this point in time. She's also a licensed massage therapist and certified pediatric massage therapist with over 20 years in the wellness field. She's a heart math coach and trainer, a mindfulness practitioner, a group trauma facilitator, and board-certified massage therapist. She helps her clients move through stress and trauma to become more resilient by building emotional and situational awareness. She does so by providing the most effective modalities for helping her clients come back to center, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, interpersonally, or all of the above. Julia earned her Bachelor of Science in Business Management from Rutgers University at Camden and her Master of Divinity from MDiv, Peace Building?
Yeah, it's a MDiv in Masters of Divinity in Peace Building.
Okay.
Yes.
And she earned her Mindfulness Matters Practitioner designation through the Kane Ramsey Strategic Life Coaching, and she's a certified Canfield Success Coach with the Jack Canfield Companies. Julia is a peace minister with Infinity Heart Ministry, and she volunteers with organizations and initiatives including UUCCH and the Peace Alliance. So really happy that we finally have her on the show because it took a little bit of time to work out our schedules. So without further ado, please welcome Julia Gandy to our show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm really excited. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, I'm so glad you could make it. You are most welcome. So, as always, for those who don't, maybe this is your first time or you haven't seen us before, you don't watch us recently, one of the things I do after reading over this list of all of the things that our guests are doing or have done is kind of revisit the past. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know, maybe you did, maybe you didn't know what you wanted to be when you were growing up, but part of me kind of imagines that little Julia running around didn't necessarily see this as her vision in life. So what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, it's so funny that you say that because when I was young, I'm the youngest of four, and the other three are very much older than me, 8, 7, and 6 years older than me. So my two sisters would fight and argue all the time, right? Just as sisters do. And I would try to work things out with them or ask them to work things out or like cry to my mother, why can't my kids get along? Like I called them my kids. And so I would write letters to my brother about how to, who can watch, like, hey, I want to watch these two shows on TV and back then in the 70s, we only had one TV, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody had one communal TV. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted to watch my shows and he wanted to watch his shows. And so like, if I do this, if I watch these two shows, and how about you watch these two, whatever. So just trying to always work things out for everyone, and so everybody kind of got what they wanted, or at least, made some adjustments to their. So there was one story when I was about, I want to say like maybe 8 or 9, and my older sisters and my mom all watched General Hospital at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And I was still little, And we had one color TV, we had one black and white TV, right? So because General Hospital and Scooby-Doo was my favorite, were on the same time, I was relegated to watch Scooby-Doo on the black and white TV in a very uncomfortable position because it wasn't in like the main TV room. So I went to my mom and I wrote a letter and I said, look, how about if you and Val and Mary watch General Hospital on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, because I knew about the cliffhangers, right? And I knew that, Mondays you got to figure out what happened the last Friday, So how about if you guys watch General Hospital those Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays I get to watch Scooby-Doo on the color TV. And she didn't go for it at that time, but it was my first foray into trying to kind of get everybody at least a little bit of something that they wanted,
to negotiate and find some level of common ground.
Right. So if we all look at the situation, how can we make that situation the best for everyone at the table? So but then when I go into school, and my father was real big on going to college, so he wanted me to go to Rutgers, and so I did, and got my business degree. And when I was went into corporate America pretty quickly, and was a manager of restaurants and things, and then I realized by the time I was 27, 28 that it wasn't for me. And that's when I went back. And it's funny because when going back to my childhood, I would massage my sisters and my mom. And like my older sister, she was an athlete, just in something every season, right? So when she was 16, I was 8, right? So she would ask me, Julie, can you walk up and down my back? So she would lay on the floor and I would walk up and down her back and help her relieve some tension. And, now people pay, big money to get that done, and I was doing it since I was 7, yeah, and then I would massage my mom, and, we're a very close-knit family. And so just always wanting to help them feel better was what I wanted to, And so when I decided to leave corporate America, it was like, I had a lot of life-changing things happen at the same time. So it was like, might as well change everything. And that's when I went back to massage school.
Which is interesting because you really did find your calling early on.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it.
Right. Yeah.
So to the extent that you're comfortable, leaving corporate America can be a really challenging decision for some. How did you find the courage to say, you know what? I realize I got my Bachelor of Science in Management, but this just isn't for me. I really wanted to move in this other direction, to work with helping people and finding common ground and negotiation and balance.
Right, yeah. So, again, life circumstances, I was getting a divorce at a very young age, 27, 28 years old. And I, at that time, had nothing else to lose, right? Okay. So I was fortunate enough that I had working 3 jobs at the same time. Wow. And going to school. I pushed my way through it, and coming up to that decision, it was literally, I want to say, like a download, right? As they say, it's like, do I want to live like this for the rest of my life? Yeah. And the answer was no, absolutely. It was just a clear-cut no. And so I knew then that I needed to make a change, and I trusted that listening to my heart, listening to guidance, whatever it is, that, just moving forward and knowing that all will be taken care of.
So you decide that you're going to take your massage therapy talent skills and actually go into that industry. But you didn't stop there.
No.
And you started to explore other aspects of the mind, body, spirit. And one of the things that we mentioned is that you're HeartMath certified. For those in our audience who may not have heard of HeartMath before, it's something that's gaining more and more interest. But can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So HeartMath is it's an Institute of HeartMath. It's a research facility on the West Coast that there have been about 30 years now of research in what stress is, what stress does to the body, and then how to use the body's own wisdom to, in that moment, get out of a stressful state. So I've been a coach since 2009, and then I went back and got my in-the-room trainer designation, so I could teach the techniques to large number of people. And so they do a lot of work with many different sectors of society. So whether it's the military and pre and post deployment, they've worked with law enforcement, they worked with first responders, and then also with teachers and surgeons, and so anybody that has to in that moment kind of re-establish a centered self, where they're not getting pulled by the situation, they come back to center in a moment, in a breath. And by doing these techniques that are taught over and over again, they practice over and over again.
Because it's all about repetition and building the habits, and it's neuroscience based, so it's actually changing the brain pathways to process differently.
Absolutely. And
So believe it or not, we're actually already time for a break. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back more and talk a little bit more about that and some of the other things that you've done and do and offer to your clients. So please come back after this commercial break for more with What the Why, and today's guest, Julia Gandy.
Thank you.
Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann. Not to be confused with What the Buy with Barbara Ann. And today's guest, Julia Gandy. And before the break, Julia Gandy, who was talking to us about HeartMath a little bit and explaining about some of the things that HeartMath can do. And when people hear heart, they tend to think, touchy-feely, but this is science-based. Ways of reprogramming ourselves. So, and you mentioned that there's some repetitive techniques involved. So, can you give us an example of like something that, maybe you're working with a first responder who, is really struggling because something that they saw at a fire or an accident scene. What is a process that you might walk them through as part of that?
Okay, so what I would do is, have them tell the story, right?
Okay.
And then say, if that happened to one of your colleagues, what would you tell that person, right? And it just kind of, it separates them from the situation, and also because we're so much more compassionate to other people than we are to ourselves.
We are.
Oh and gosh. So it's just that way of observing, not kind of stepping out of the situation and becoming more compassionate. We need more compassion, and when there's something that is traumatic, it gets seared into our brains, and so it's a matter of time. It's just kind of like unweaving the threads to that, and again, there's a whole bunch of different things that we could bring to the table, whether it's there's a couple different techniques that I've developed that I kind of blend a lot of different things, and through the coaching, through some assessments, and then body work at the same time, and one-on-one that it kind of helps to get a different perspective on things.
And you're right, especially for somebody who's going through trauma. We have, we've already experienced trauma, and then we will say things to ourselves and beat up on ourselves far worse than anyone else ever could. And so, what you're describing, and one of the takeaways that people can get from this is, first and foremost, stop saying things to yourself that you would never say to a friend or a family member or somebody that you care about.
Yeah, and that's the inner peace coach of this, is becoming your own inner cheerleader instead of your own inner critic. And that I was very, very critical of myself at, up until like 2 or 3 years ago, because, I'm not doing what I want to do, or I'm doing too much, I need to rest, that dialogue that we have in our brains, it goes back and forth. So I use a lot of the Jack Canfield stuff to help me get through that, to move from that inner critic, that, oh, you're so stupid, that voice that's in our, and then to more like, okay, you got this, you got it, it's okay, like move forward. And, so it's that inner critic that can really deplete our energies, our desires, our motivations, and moving that to that inner cheerleader is what we really need to work on, to help our own systems find peace.
Yeah. And then all of that, in terms of finding peace within our systems, that affects everything.
Oh, yeah.
Mind, body, spirit, and
interpersonal.
Everything. And which actually, because as we mentioned, you're a minister, and so we take all of that and we combine it. You're in the process of you're going to have a book that's going to be coming out.
Yep.
Where you're kind of like combining all of these different things that you specialize in. So we have a picture of the book up now, A Jersey Girl Finds Peace. And of course, we're going to have her back after I have a chance to actually read it, because we'll be able to talk more about that. But give us a little bit of a preview about what brought you to the point that you felt compelled to write this, because you have all these different unique perspectives that you're bringing to this, written experience.
So when I've been through a lot, a couple divorces, a few deaths in my family, but it was when I had cancer, when I was diagnosed with cancer, and it's about 4 years ago now, that I knew I needed more support. I had, I got this, I have all the tools, I learned all this stuff, right? But it was when that cancer word came into my existence that I was like, oh, this is bigger than me. So I really connected with my community and helped my church community, my family. We really, everybody kind of came together on that, right? So everything was fine, cancer-free and all that, but what I knew then was that, I have all these techniques and that I use to get through, and now I have the ability to help other people to get through those kinds of situations. So the book is really about, like, every chapter is a chapter of my life. There's, my childhood, kind of tell some of the same stories, but then the divorce and the reason why I wanted to become a minister and my ordination, and so all these different things about peace building, and again, inner peace building, and then how to bring that out into the world, and so it's kind of tells a lot of stories, but then it's like what I learned from it, because what I've realized is what I help people now is to make peace with their past, so that they can stay in the present without getting pulled those stories, by that, those things that can drain us.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, by making peace with their past, they're also using that to help inform how they handle things in the future, which is, a technique I use too. I call it past, present, future. What did you learn from the past that you can apply to this situation and future situations to help you move forward? So, so you kind of shared one thing that you learned. What's one other lesson? Because I don't want too many spoiler alerts, because we want people to actually go get the book when it becomes available. So
well, it's in pre-launch now, so they can. So what was your question?
So you talked about, letting the past inform your future. What's one other thing that you learned as part of the process, as kind of a teaser / spoiler alert?
Not to give up on love. Okay. Love is the greatest thing. And so when we have that trust, I call it trust, surrender, and gratitude, So trust, surrender to that trust, and then be grateful. So,
Which takes a lot of vulnerability.
Absolutely. Yes, it does. Yeah.
For someone who's struggling with vulnerability, especially if they've had it, used in nefarious ways in some instances, how would you encourage someone to overcome the fear of that trust? I mean, granted, we could do a whole week-long series on that, but just kind of briefly, how would someone get started with learning to trust and become vulnerable again?
So, what I would say is, what's coming to my head is that everybody's doing the best they can with what they have, right? So, if you've been hurt in a certain situation in the past, everybody in that situation was doing the best they could with the information they had at hand. So even though they hurt you, they may not have meant it, or they were doing the best they could with what they had. So it kind of takes the blame off, or it takes that oh, woe is me, poor me, and it says, it just changes that perspective just a little bit. That it's like, okay, it was just what it is. It was something that happened, and I can let that go, put it down, and move forward. And you might have to put it down a few times. Like, oh, I picked it back up again. I need to put it back down again. So, it's also to be able to laugh at yourself. To find the humor in things, like, oh, there I go again, like when those things start happening, oh, there you go. Yeah,
in a healthy, self-deprecating way, as opposed to a beating up on yourself kind of way.
Yeah, and just to lighten the load a little bit, So that's pretty much. It's just that ability to take a breath and know that you're doing the best you can with what you have at this time.
And remember, everybody, don't use language to beat up or criticize yourself that you wouldn't use with somebody who you care about.
Absolutely. That's when somebody says something like that, and if it's my sister or my husband, I'm like, don't talk to my husband that way, because they're talking to themselves that way, and I don't like it. So don't talk to yourself that way, please.
Awesome.
Don't talk to my friend that way.
Which is perfect note to end on, because we're already at time. But of course, so Julia's book is in pre-launch, and if you could tell our viewers how they can reach you.
Okay, it's you can see the book in pre-launch at jerseygirlpeace.com.
All right, so jerseygirlpeace.com. And what's the best way to reach out to you otherwise? I mean, I know you're on social media, but Facebook, LinkedIn.
Facebook and LinkedIn. Yep,
Okay.
Julia Gandy or Julia Gandy Torres is the author's name. And also, I have a phone number too that they can call. It's 609-634-2396.
Okay, and then you have a website also.
Yeah,
Which she's Embodying Wellness. So that's her company, and she are actively taking on clients.
I am.
And while you do focus on healthcare workers and first responders, you also work with the broader public that's looking to make these changes in their lives. So,
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for taking time to come in and be on the show. And so regarding future episodes, our upcoming lineup of guests includes, but is not limited to, Bonnie Clayton, who is owner of The Web Chick, the tech geek with a creative streak. And of course, I'm gonna get to another guest who I'm also gonna plug. We also have Anita Grace Brown, author and yoga teacher at Groovology. Tom Drucker, CEO of Consultants in Corporate Innovation and a specialist in psychological safety. Tanner Ali, founder and residential land steward, and she's founder of iLogic Sustainable Industries. She's a farmer. She's got an interesting story. And Lisa Hillerin, author and owner of Lisa Hillerin LLC. And Dr. Kevin, who you may know from, and should know, from Unwinding Strays. See, here I am. See, just tripping over the words. I'm not perfect, and I laugh it off.
Yep.
But Dr. Kevin is going to be an upcoming guest as well. He has a show called Unwinding Strays, but Stress. You did it again. Now it's implanted in my brain. But anyway, he's going to be coming on to talk more about his why, something you don't necessarily get to hear about when he is hosting his show. But also, feel free to go to Unwinding Stress, because I did appear on Dr. Kevin's show a few weeks ago. Also, feel free to check out Her Biz's Ellen Herbert, and whose show I was on a couple months ago. And one of our more recent repeat guests, Ian Hanley, has a new show on RVN Network also. I have to make sure I pronounce this right, since I can't even pronounce the word stress right. But Taliesin's Magical Tales. Okay,
There you go.
I made sure I got that right. All of our guests have amazing things to say, and so please do check them out. As a reminder, What the Why airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and then on Mondays at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and is also available on demand on rvntelevision.com and Roku, typically within 24 to 48 hours of the Monday or the Tuesday afternoon airing, but sometimes even same day. So that's really cool. And please remember, whether you're looking to change something in your life, no matter how big or small, please tune in again for more inspirational and informational conversations with guests such as Julia, who have figured out what their core purpose and their why in life was, and overcome whatever obstacles or fears may have been in their path at different points in the time that they've been on this earth, to find their why and to live it.